On behalf of Zetech University is in Pioneer Building, in the CBD. It is in Roiro, and now the new campus is next to Mangu High School. It is a technology university. Our niche is technology. And on behalf of Zetech University and myself, I want to accept with appreciation the invitation for this great conference with the theme of building networks to advance social entrepreneurship in Africa. And it is my hope that as you have continued to hold different discourse in different panels, that this theme has been well addressed. I addressed this conference, I don't know whether it's last year or last year, but one. And when I was invited, I was reflecting on what has been the impact of the 6 conferences that have occurred under a course. I don't know who has been chairing this, father. Who has been chairing the conferences? I'm talking to the father who has invited me. Brother. You know, because it's important to do M&E. It's good to reflect. This is the 7th conference. And so we want to ask ourselves, what have we been able to achieve in the last 6 conferences, and what are we going to achieve in this 7th conference? From the very beginning, I want to appreciate the participants and the diverse nationalities and the diverse topics that have been handled in these interactions, from human capital development, environmental sustainability, addressing climate change, legal and policy issues, social entrepreneurship, healthcare for all, faith-driven social entrepreneurship, agriculture, food safety and sovereignty, models of social innovation and financing, making of partnerships and networking for social enterprises, shaping the future of technology and digital world for good of all in Africa. These have been wonderful topics. But I want to reflect a little bit about Africa, because Africa is what is of our interest. And say that it is important that in conferences like this, we don't just have good papers, good presentations, a nice feel like I felt when we were launching NASA. But we must be able, in such meetings, come with things that impact people's lives. Kenya has just undergone one of its worst floods in recent times, losing almost 300 people, schools getting lost, homes being submerged under water and people being displaced, to the extent that we had to change the opening calendar of schools. Social activities have been disrupted, and there is imminent hunger because of flooding of crops in this country. As we discuss social enterprise, it becomes clear to us that things like climate change, which have been discussed, can affect and seriously impact all the aspects of our lives. It therefore calls upon us to develop the right policies and plans to mitigate against disruptions brought about by disruptive things like climate change. There is need for serious urban planning, the need for managing the riparian lands, which we have encroached on. It is time we ask tangible and hard questions to ourselves. And I hope that this conference will come up with the policy briefs to all relevant state departments on matters addressed in this conference and which would directly affect the policy direction of this country. The responsibility of universities and forums like this should be to give sound advice, proper quality guidance to the government in order to have budgetary allocation to support social enterprises and mitigate against social issues that affect our people. With a youth unemployment of that 1.5% out of the employable 10 million youth in this country, Africa contributes only 2% of global trade. Only 2%. And the youth who are here, please listen. 2% only is what Africa is contributing in global trade. But Africa has 92% of global platinum, 56% cobalt, and 54% manganese, the main minerals that are used for renewable energy development. We hold 12% of global hydroelectric power, yet the coverage of power in Africa is still very low. Africa imports 60 billion worth of food every year. And Kenya alone, the figures we got last week, was that Kenya is importing food worth 600 billion per annum in food. Africa is importing second-hand clothes worth $700 million. Yet Africa holds 65% of the potential arable land in the world. And I want to ask ourselves, when we talk about social enterprise, can we see where our potential is, where the jobs are? So my challenge to all of us is to ask the hard questions. When I was a little younger, in the 60s, I was told that in every home in Kenya in 1980, there would be piped water. So I was actually waiting very anxiously for 1980 so that I can have piped water. Then that became 2000, and then the 2000 became 2030. I'm not sure now we are talking about Africa Agenda 2063. I'm not sure how old I will be, but I will be 100 and a few years more. So when is Africa going to arrest the mirage, the moving target of development? Because that must be the question we must ask ourselves and face ourselves, look ourselves genuinely in the mirror and say we are developing. And I would like to say one or two things. The first one is that as we talk about social enterprise, let us go back to innovations. Let's go back to innovations and ask ourselves, okay, we are all using mobile phones. I'm told Embu now has a high potential of quota, which is used in mobile phones. So we are mining it for export. So when will Africa use quota to make mobile phones locally? Titanium has been mined a lot in Kwale. One of the most versatile metals that is used in many other issues, including airplane parts. So when are we going to make use of our own minerals? And it is important that we ask these hard questions, because without asking those questions, we will be running the mirage. 2063 will come, and then we will shift to 2073. And then after 2073, it will be 2083, and the next thing we are going to the other millennium of 2021. And therefore, I want to challenge ourselves. I want to challenge ourselves and ask the hard questions. How do we make the 65% arable land of Africa to feed Africa? Maybe we need a social enterprise to encourage our youth to love farming. To love farming. Because it has been found the average age of a farmer in Kenya now is 60 years. The average farmer in Kenya is 60 years. I'm not sure how much energy I have to do farming. And therefore, we must ask, what is our key resource? And I believe the youth of this country and the youth of Africa are the key resource in the future enterprise of Africa. Whatever we are talking about must be driven by the youth of the country. With a population of over 60%, actually 70% of the nation is people under 35 years. Those must be the people who must move the social enterprise to ensure that the country grows. That when we talk about innovation, when we talk about application of science, I was talking to Sir, let me pronounce it properly. Let me try. Sir Zib. Almost there. Shazib comes from Bangladesh, and I'm told he had a talk here. Bangladesh is the second largest exporter of textiles globally. If you take it geographically, it is a much smaller country than Kenya. It's only second to China. Yet, Kenya literally is importing all textiles. Yesterday I was attending video somewhere in Thika, and I remembered in the 70s, there was UTI, United Textile, there was Synthetic, there was Zetech, UCAN, Synthetic, there was Raymond, there was Rivertex, Nakuru Textile, Nakuru Blanket, and all these factories closed in the 80s. Over 10,000 people were employed then in those factories. So today we are talking about unemployment. That time our population was in the range of 20-something. And today we are talking about 50 million Kenyans who need textiles. Yet we are importing virtually everything from Turkey, from China, and from India, and from other countries. So for me, the way I see it, first and foremost, we need a benchmark. And the benchmark is to ask ourselves a simple question. How much are we importing in textiles? And in the next 3 years, how much do we want to reduce that and build the local capacity to produce what we are making? If we are importing 600 billion worth of food this year, how much are we going to decrease that by next year? And how much of that are we going to substitute with local production? If we are importing pharmaceuticals and chemicals worth this amount of money, how much of that is going to be produced locally and how much is going to be imported? So that as the local import decreases, we increase the exports of our own products. I say this without any fear of contradiction and without any fear of what I'm saying, that unless we address our consumption, consume what we produce, and produce what we want to consume, then Africa will remain in a state of underdevelopment for a very long time. And I've always asked my scientists a simple question, my innovators. I ask this question without bleaching an eye. And I ask, okay, we are in 4G. Now we are going for 5G. 5G. Now we are in AI, which is good. Data analytics, artificial intelligence. The other day I attended a conference where we were doing ChatGPT, and I was very amused at how easy now it is to, you don't have to struggle to write a thesis. You just give the keywords, and it produces a very beautiful document with introduction, with a nice abstract, and everything will be done. But I want to ask a simple question, ladies and gentlemen. When shall I use a mic? This one, the one I'm holding. A mic, which is just a magnet and a few other things that is actually made in Kariobangi. When am I going to do that? When is Tangaza going to be the center of innovation, so that at the end of the day, we get the simple calculators and simple digital clocks that are made in Tangaza? I think my challenge is very simple to the youth and to ourselves, that we must be honest with ourselves. We can't be wearing nice suits like this one, only if they are imported from Pakistan or if they are imported from Turkey. We must go back to where we were in the 70s and produce the best textiles in this country, so that as we talk about social enterprise, as we talk about collaboration, we are talking about collaboration for self-independence. I want to thank the organizers, the sponsors, the keynote speakers, other presenters and panelists and participants for this great conference. For those outside Kenya, we want to invite you to bring students to Tangaza University and to Zetech University. And want to say one or two things. One, please don't get out of this conference before you have produced a communique to all relevant state departments on what is your view on the many issues that have been discussed. A good communique that talks about digital transformation, that talks about youth empowerment, that talks about social capital. I also want to congratulate Tangaza for getting its charter the other day. Hongera sana. I used to be the youngest. Now I have a sibling, a younger sibling. So I want to congratulate Tangaza once again. And once again, I want to thank the organizers. And I want to declare today's session of ACOSI officially closed for startup tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bwana VC. Also